Introduction. Human beings are social creatures by nature. From the moment we take our first breath, we are drawn into a world of relationships, conversations, and connections that shape who we are and who we will become. Every interaction we have, whether fleeting or lasting, leaves an imprint on us and influences the path of our lives. Yet, while schools teach us mathematics, literature, and science, few ever teach us the deeper art of understanding people, the psychology that governs human behavior, and the intelligence that allows us to thrive in the company of others. This missing piece is what we call social intelligence. Social intelligence is more than charm, more than persuasion, and far more profound than simply knowing how to hold a conversation. It is the mastery of perceiving, interpreting, and responding to human behavior in ways that build trust, foster cooperation, and create meaningful bonds. Where traditional intelligence focuses on solving problems and emotional intelligence on managing feelings, social intelligence lives at the intersection. It is about navigating the complex web of human interactions with grace, empathy, and insight. The truth is, success in life rarely comes from knowledge alone. Brilliant minds can falter when they cannot connect with people. Talented leaders can fail if they cannot read a room or build trust among their teams. Even in personal relationships, intelligence or passion may not be enough if one cannot truly understand and respond to the needs of another. Social intelligence is the hidden currency of influence, the silent power that determines how far our abilities can carry us. It is the bridge between ideas and acceptance, between potential and recognition. This audiobook is a journey into the inner workings of human interaction. It peels back the layers of why people think, feel, and act the way they do, while also offering practical insights on how to engage with that reality in powerful, life-enhancing ways. We will explore the subtle cues people reveal without words, the emotional undercurrents that drive decisions, the delicate balance of trust and influence, and the ways social structures shape behavior. Along the way, you will discover how mastering these principles can transform your personal life, your relationships, and your professional world. The pursuit of social intelligence is not about manipulation or control. It is about alignment, understanding yourself deeply while learning to recognize the perspectives of others. It is about empathy that goes beyond sympathy, communication that builds rather than divides, and influence that uplifts rather than diminishes. To master social intelligence is to step into a life of greater clarity, deeper connections, and a wider reach of positive impact. We live in a time where social interaction has expanded beyond physical spaces into digital realms. Every like, comment, and share post is part of a new landscape of human behavior. Navigating this modern environment requires even greater sensitivity and adaptability than ever before. Social intelligence equips us to not only survive in such a world, but to thrive, building networks, leading change, and cultivating harmony in the midst of complexity. As you begin this journey through the psychology of human behavior, consider this book a mirror and a map. A mirror, because it will reflect aspects of yourself you may not have seen before, shedding light on your habits, strengths, and blind spots. A map, because it will guide you through the intricate terrain of human interactions, pointing the way to deeper wisdom and mastery in every area of life. Mastering social intelligence is not an overnight task, but it is a lifelong skill that grows richer the more it is practiced. Each page you read is an invitation to see people differently, to understand motivations more clearly, and to engage with the world more meaningfully. Whether your goal is to lead, to love, to influence, or simply to connect, the journey begins here. Chapter 1. The Foundations of Social Intelligence. Social intelligence has often been called the invisible art of human interaction. It is that subtle yet powerful ability to navigate relationships, to read the unspoken cues between people, and to respond in ways that create trust, connection, and influence. When we speak of intelligence, most minds immediately drift to IQ, the classic measure of analytical ability, problem solving, and academic knowledge. Later, the concept of emotional intelligence reshaped how we understood success, showing us that recognizing and regulating emotions was just as important as book knowledge. Yet, there remains a third dimension, often overlooked but equally critical: the intelligence of human relationships. This is social intelligence, and it forms the bedrock upon which our personal lives, careers, and cultures are built. Social intelligence is the ability to read the minds and hearts of others without judgment and to adapt behavior in ways that foster positive interactions. Unlike IQ, which focuses on logical reasoning, or emotional intelligence, which centers on self-awareness and empathy, social intelligence is outward-facing. It is concerned not merely with how we feel, but with how our behaviors affect the people around us and how we interpret their actions in return. A person may be highly intelligent in the academic sense, able to solve complex equations or recall endless facts, yet struggle in social settings, appearing awkward, distant, or misunderstood. Another may possess emotional awareness, recognizing their moods and regulating them well, but still fail to connect meaningfully because they cannot decode the subtle dynamics at play between people. Social intelligence weaves these strands together, turning raw empathy and awareness into practical action within real-life social contexts. The importance of this form of intelligence cannot be overstated. In our personal lives, social intelligence determines the depth of our relationships. The ability to listen deeply, to sense when a friend needs comfort rather than advice, or to know when silence speaks louder than words. All of these moments rest upon social understanding. Families thrive or fracture based on how members read and respond to one another. Friendships are sustained by shared experiences, yes, but also by the capacity to respect unspoken boundaries, honor trust, and navigate inevitable conflicts with grace. Love itself, at its truest expression, is built on the capacity to understand another person's emotional landscape and to respond in ways that affirm and strengthen their humanity. In the professional world, social intelligence is often the unspoken differentiator between those who excel and those who plateau. Knowledge and skill may open doors, but it is the ability to work with people that keeps those doors open and leads to greater opportunities. Leaders who lack social intelligence may inspire fear or compliance, but they rarely inspire loyalty. Colleagues who cannot read the moods of a team or negotiate the complex undercurrents of workplace politics often find themselves sidelined, regardless of their technical competence. On the other hand, those who understand the psychology of group behavior, who can defuse tension with the right word or gesture, and who can influence without coercion, rise naturally to positions of influence and respect. In business, diplomacy, or even entrepreneurship, success is rarely an isolated achievement. It is woven out of networks. Culturally, the role of social intelligence expands even further. Human beings are not only individuals but also members of communities, tribes, and nations. Every culture has its own codes of conduct, its own nonverbal cues, and its own unspoken rules of belonging. What may be considered polite in one part of the world might be interpreted as rude or distant in another. A socially intelligent person recognizes these variations and adapts accordingly, creating bridges instead of barriers. In an increasingly globalized society where cross-cultural interaction is the norm rather than the exception, the ability to navigate these subtle cultural distinctions is no longer optional. It is essential. Without it, misunderstandings quickly escalate into conflicts, prejudices deepen into divisions, and opportunities for unity are lost. The science behind social intelligence rests upon the way human beings are wired for connection. Neuroscientists have shown that our brains are not solitary machines, but deeply social organs. The discovery of mirror neurons, for example, revealed how our minds are designed to reflect the actions and emotions of others, allowing us to empathize, learn, and connect almost instinctively. When we see someone smile, the same regions in our brain that govern smiling light up, preparing us to mirror that joy. When we observe someone in pain, our brain activates areas that help us experience a shadow of that suffering ourselves. This neurological mirroring is the foundation of empathy and the engine of social understanding. Beyond neuroscience, psychology has demonstrated that human connection fulfills fundamental needs. Abraham Maslow placed belonging just above physiological and safety needs in his hierarchy, emphasizing that to be human is to crave acceptance. Social rejection, studies have shown, activates the same brain regions as physical pain, which explains why loneliness can be as destructive as any physical ailment. People thrive in environments where they are seen, heard, and understood. Communities flourish when cooperation, trust, and mutual respect are present. At every level of existence, the science confirms what intuition has always told us. We are wired to connect, and our ability to do so skillfully determines the quality of our lives. Social intelligence, then, is not a luxury or a talent reserved for the naturally charismatic. It is a learnable, practicable skill rooted in both psychology and biology. It is the conscious refinement of what evolution has already provided us, the capacity to sense, interpret, and respond to human behavior. To master social intelligence is to step into the flow of humanity with clarity and intention, to move through conversations and connections with a grace that uplifts both yourself and others. It is the art of being human at its highest level. Chapter 2. The Psychology of Human Behavior. To understand social intelligence, we must first understand the raw material it works with, human behavior itself. Every glance, every word spoken, every choice made is an outward expression of an intricate inner world. At the surface, behavior may seem spontaneous, even random at times, but beneath it lies a complex interplay of thought, emotion, biology, and experience. To master the art of human connection, one must first appreciate how these forces combine to shape the way people think, feel, and act. Human thought is often described as the architect of behavior. What we believe and how we interpret the world around us sets the stage for the decisions we make. Thoughts are not isolated. They are woven from memories, perceptions, and expectations. A person raised in an environment of encouragement and trust may interpret challenges as opportunities, while someone whose experiences have been marked by constant criticism may approach the same challenge with fear or hesitation. Thoughts, in this way, act as filters. They frame reality and determine whether we move toward it with curiosity, resistance, or avoidance. Emotions, however, often bypass reason and act as the invisible hand guiding behavior more powerfully than logic ever could. They are ancient signals, rooted in survival, designed to push us toward or away from certain actions. Fear once kept our ancestors alive in the face of predators. Love bound tribes together for survival. Anger fueled the defense of territory and resources. In the modern world, these same emotions still operate, though in less life and death contexts. Fear can keep someone from speaking up in a meeting, even when their idea could be valuable. Love can inspire sacrifice beyond reason, as a parent works tirelessly for a child's well-being. Anger, if unchecked, can destroy relationships, but if channeled, it can motivate change and justice. The dance between thought and emotion is constant, sometimes harmonious, sometimes conflicting, and the actions that emerge are often the product of whichever force is strongest in a given moment. No discussion of human behavior would be complete without acknowledging the environment in which people are shaped. From birth, the world around us becomes the mold into which our minds and personalities are poured. A child raised in a nurturing home where mistakes are seen as learning opportunities will likely approach life with resilience, while another raised in harshness or neglect may struggle with self-worth and trust. Schools, neighborhoods, and peer groups all play critical roles in this formation. Beyond the immediate family, culture itself acts as a powerful sculptor of behavior. Cultural norms dictate what is acceptable and what is taboo, what is praised and what is condemned. For instance, collectivist societies emphasize harmony, family honor, and group identity, while individualist cultures prize independence, personal achievement, and self-expression. Neither approach is inherently superior, but each creates vastly different ways of thinking and behaving. What may be considered assertive in one culture could be seen as arrogance in another, and what feels respectful in one setting may appear distant or cold in another. The weight of upbringing and culture raises one of psychology's oldest and most debated questions. Are we who we are because of nature or because of nurture? The nature versus nurture debate asks whether our behaviors are driven primarily by our genetic inheritance or by the environments in which we are raised. Nature emphasizes biology, pointing to temperament traits present even in infancy, genetic predispositions towards certain conditions, and inherited abilities. Nurture emphasizes life experiences, showing how trauma, love, education, or social conditioning can drastically alter the course of a person's development. Modern research has revealed that this debate is not a simple either-or. Human behavior emerges from a dynamic interplay between biology and environment. Genes may set the potential, but environment determines how that potential unfolds. A person may be genetically predisposed to anxiety, but with nurturing support, coping skills, and exposure to healthy environments, they may grow into resilience rather than fear. Similarly, someone may be naturally gifted musically, but without exposure to instruments, training, and encouragement, that gift may never find its full expression. Nature loads a gun, as the saying goes, but nurture pulls the trigger. Social behavior itself is perhaps the clearest demonstration of this interaction. We inherit instincts for survival and connection, such as the ability to form attachments or to recognize emotions in others. But how these instincts are expressed depends on the context in which we live. For example, the natural desire for belonging may manifest as loyalty to a tribe in one cultural context, devotion to a company in a corporate setting, or passion for an online community in the digital age. The instinct remains, but the expression is shaped by environment. Understanding the psychology of behavior also requires us to recognize that people are not static. Our thoughts, emotions, and actions evolve across the lifespan. Experiences alter the wiring of the brain, reshaping how we perceive and respond to the world. A child who once acted impulsively may, through maturity and guidance, learn self-control. An adult who once feared rejection may, through repeated successes and healing experiences, grow into confidence. Human behavior is not fixed. It is adaptable, pliable, and responsive to both inner and outer forces. This adaptability is precisely what makes social intelligence both possible and necessary. By understanding how people are shaped, we are better equipped to approach them with empathy, patience, and skill. The psychology of human behavior, then, is a rich tapestry woven of countless threads. Thoughts provide structure, emotions add color and intensity, upbringing and culture define the patterns, and nature and nurture weave together to create the whole. To study behavior is to study humanity itself, to recognize that behind every action lies a story, behind every reaction lies a trigger, and behind every individual lies a network of influences that have shaped them into who they are. For the socially intelligent, this understanding is not merely academic. It becomes a practical tool. It teaches us to look beyond the surface of behavior to the forces beneath. It helps us to interpret anger not as hostility alone, but perhaps as fear or pain. It allows us to see silence not simply as disinterest, but perhaps as respect or uncertainty. It gives us the wisdom to respond to others not with assumption, but with curiosity, not with judgment, but with understanding. The psychology of human behavior is, at its heart, the story of what it means to be human. To grasp it is to unlock the foundation of all meaningful connection. And in mastering it, we prepare ourselves for the greater task ahead, to not only understand others, but to build bridges of trust, cooperation, and influence that shape our shared world. Chapter 3. Reading People Accurately. The art of social intelligence begins with perception. To connect meaningfully with others, one must first see them as they truly are, not only in the words they speak, but in the subtle, silent signals they reveal through their posture, gestures, expressions, and tone. Human beings are storytellers, but much of what we communicate is unspoken. Reading people accurately is therefore not about suspicion or mind reading. It is about cultivating a heightened awareness of detail, a sensitivity to the rhythms of human expression, and the patience to listen to what is not being said as much as to what is spoken aloud. Observation is the cornerstone of this ability. Most people move through their interactions half-aware, absorbed in their own thoughts, waiting for their turn to speak rather than fully present in the moment. Yet, the socially intelligent individual recognizes that every moment is an opportunity to notice something deeper. A slight tightening of the jaw can reveal stress hidden behind a polite smile. The tapping of fingers on a table might betray impatience, even when words are calm. Averted eyes may suggest discomfort or shame. These details are often subtle and fleeting, requiring an attentive eye and an unhurried mind to perceive. Developing the discipline of observation allows one to move past the surface of interaction into the underlying truths that govern human behavior. Nonverbal communication, often referred to as body language, is one of the richest sources of insight into another person's state of mind. From the way someone crosses their arms to the direction of their feet, every physical movement conveys meaning. For instance, open body language, relaxed posture, uncrossed arms, and a torso facing forward often signals receptiveness and trust. Conversely, closed gestures, such as folded arms, hunched shoulders, or a body angled away, may indicate defensiveness, withdrawal, or discomfort. Eye contact is particularly revealing. Steady, warm eye contact conveys confidence and connection, while darting eyes or an inability to maintain gaze may suggest nervousness, guilt, or insecurity. Yet, cultural context must always be considered, as in some societies prolonged eye contact may be interpreted as disrespect or aggression rather than sincerity. Facial expressions are perhaps the most universal of human cues. Psychologists have long observed that basic emotions, joy, sadness, fear, anger, disgust, and surprise, are recognized across cultures regardless of language or background. A smile, genuine or forced, speaks volumes. The difference between the two lies in the eyes. A true smile, often called the Duchenne smile, engages the tiny muscles around the eyes, creating crow's feet and a warmth that cannot be faked. A forced smile, on the other hand, lifts only the corners of the mouth, leaving the eyes cold and unlit. Likewise, a flash of narrowed eyes before a laugh may suggest mockery rather than amusement, while raised brows can signal curiosity, surprise, or disbelief depending on the situation. The socially intelligent person does not isolate these signals, but interprets them within the broader context of the conversation, the environment, and the relationship between those involved. Tone of voice adds yet another layer to this silent language. Words may carry one meaning, but the way they are spoken often reveals the true message. A phrase as simple as, "I'm fine," can communicate peace, exhaustion, irritation, or even despair depending on pitch, pace, and emphasis. Rising tones may suggest uncertainty or a question even when a statement is made. Lowered tones often signal seriousness or authority. Pauses can be powerful too, creating tension, emphasis, or hesitation. Attentive listening requires hearing not just the words, but the weight carried in the way they are delivered. Beyond observing physical signals lies the deeper challenge, identifying hidden emotions and intentions. People often conceal what they truly feel, whether to protect themselves, to maintain social harmony, or to achieve an agenda. A colleague may agree to a proposal with words while silently resenting it. A friend may insist they are unbothered when jealousy is written across their face. Hidden emotions are not always deliberately deceptive. Sometimes they are unconscious, spilling out through micro-expressions or nervous habits. Micro-expressions, those brief, involuntary flashes of emotion across the face, are particularly revealing. They may last less than a second, but for the trained observer, they offer a glimpse of feelings that the individual may not wish to show. Catching a split-second look of fear before a forced smile, or a flash of contempt before a nod of agreement, provides invaluable insight into the true state of the person. Intentions, too, can often be read in subtle cues. Someone preparing to leave a conversation will often point their feet toward the door long before they announce their exit. A negotiator may insist on compromise while leaning back, distancing themselves physically from the table, signaling unwillingness to concede. Parents may hear the words, "Nothing's wrong," from a teenager, but a downward glance and slumped shoulders reveal more than the denial. By piecing together these fragments of behavior, the socially intelligent observer can understand not just what is being said, but what is being meant. The power of reading people accurately lies not in exposing them, but in connecting with them. It fosters empathy, allowing us to step into another's emotional reality rather than imposing our assumptions upon it. It equips us to respond with sensitivity, to offer comfort when someone is hurting, to extend patience when someone is overwhelmed, and to negotiate wisely when someone is holding back. It prevents misunderstanding by clarifying intention and builds trust by demonstrating that we truly see and hear those around us. Yet, this ability requires practice, patience, and humility. It demands that we slow down, silence our internal chatter, and give our full attention to others. It requires that we guard against the temptation to overinterpret, remembering that no single gesture or cue tells the whole story. A folded arm may mean defensiveness, but it may also simply mean the person is cold. A nervous laugh may hide discomfort, or it may simply be habit. Accuracy comes not from seizing upon isolated signs, but from interpreting them as part of a larger, living portrait of the person before us. To read people accurately is to honor the complexity of human expression. It is to recognize that beneath every conversation lies a richer dialogue of gestures, tones, and feelings, and that by attuning ourselves to it, we can deepen our understanding of others. This skill transforms relationships, turning interactions from surface exchanges into meaningful connections. It turns leadership from command into influence, friendship from companionship into intimacy, and negotiation from opposition into cooperation. The world is filled with signals waiting to be noticed. Every interaction is layered with messages, both spoken and unspoken. Those who train themselves to observe carefully, to listen deeply, and to interpret wisely unlock a power that reshapes every sphere of life. Social intelligence begins here, with the eyes that see, the ears that hear, and the heart that understands what lies beneath the surface. Chapter 4. Emotional Awareness and Control. Emotions are the silent architects of human experience. They guide our decisions, color our perceptions, and fuel our interactions long before reason has the chance to intervene. At their best, emotions inspire love, joy, creativity, and resilience. At their worst, they drive impulsive choices, fuel conflicts, and leave us with regrets. To walk the path of social intelligence requires more than the ability to read emotions in others. It demands mastery over the emotional currents that move within ourselves. Emotional awareness and control are not about suppressing what we feel, but about recognizing, understanding, and channeling those feelings in ways that elevate both our lives and our relationships. Awareness begins with the recognition of emotional triggers. Each person carries within them a set of experiences, beliefs, and memories that act like hidden tripwires. When touched, they ignite powerful emotional responses, sometimes far out of proportion to the immediate situation. A casual remark about competence may feel like a personal attack to someone whose childhood was filled with criticism. A delayed text reply may trigger panic in a person whose past is marked by abandonment. Similarly, in professional spaces, a colleague's tone may awaken defensiveness, not because of the actual word spoken, but because it echoes a long history of being dismissed. Identifying these triggers is the first step toward emotional mastery. Without awareness, we remain at the mercy of past wounds, reacting to shadows rather than realities. With awareness, we gain the power to pause, reflect, and choose a different path. The ability to recognize triggers extends beyond the self and into the realm of others. A socially intelligent individual observes not just what people say, but how they react under stress or in moments of vulnerability. When we see someone flare up over a minor issue, it is often not the issue itself that holds power, but the deeper wound it has touched. Understanding this truth changes the way we respond. Instead of meeting anger with anger, we learn to look beneath the surface and ask what need or fear lies hidden within the reaction. This shift transforms confrontation into compassion, allowing us to de-escalate tension and offer understanding where others might only see conflict. Once triggers are recognized, the challenge becomes regulation. Emotional regulation is not the denial of feeling, but the art of guiding emotions into constructive expression. It is the pause between impulse and action, the space where wisdom has a chance to intervene. Techniques for regulation vary, but all share the same foundation: slowing down the storm long enough to regain perspective. Deep, deliberate breathing, for example, has been shown to calm the nervous system, shifting the body from fight or flight into a state of balance. Mindfulness practices, where attention is anchored in the present moment without judgment, reduce the grip of spiraling thoughts that often magnify emotional intensity. Even the simple act of labeling an emotion, saying to oneself, "I feel anxious," or "I feel frustrated," has the power to reduce its intensity as the brain moves from raw reaction into conscious acknowledgement. Regulation also requires reframing. Our thoughts feed our emotions, and by shifting perspective, we can alter how we feel. A setback at work can be seen as proof of failure or as an opportunity to learn. A conflict in a relationship can be interpreted as the beginning of the end or as a moment of growth and deeper understanding. By consciously choosing interpretations that empower rather than diminish, we guide our emotions into more constructive pathways. This is not the false optimism of denial, but the courageous act of assigning meaning that allows us to grow rather than collapse under pressure. Yet, control does not mean control alone. The socially intelligent understand that emotions are bridges as much as they are storms, and that one of the most powerful ways to manage emotions is through connection with others. Empathy becomes the key that unlocks this bridge. Empathy is not merely feeling what another feels. It is entering their perspective, seeing through their eyes, and experiencing the world as they experience it, even if for just a moment. When empathy is practiced, relationships are transformed. A friend who listens without judgment, a leader who validates the fears of their team, or a parent who kneels to understand a child's frustration. These are acts of empathy that not only soothe emotions but deepen trust and loyalty. Empathy also reshapes our own inner responses. When we view the angry driver not as a villain, but as a person possibly rushing to an emergency, our frustration lessens. When we see the cold colleague not as arrogant, but perhaps as shy or burdened, our judgment softens. By stepping outside our narrow lens and considering the emotional realities of others, we not only regulate our own reactions, but also strengthen the bonds that tie us together. In this way, empathy becomes a tool of emotional mastery, expanding our awareness beyond the self into the shared human experience. The ability to control emotions does not eliminate their power. Rather, it refines it. Anger, when harnessed, becomes the fuel for justice. Fear, when understood, becomes the alertness that drives preparation. Sadness, when embraced, becomes the doorway to healing and connection. Even joy, when regulated, deepens into gratitude rather than reckless indulgence. Mastery of emotions, therefore, is not the absence of feeling, but the art of channeling feeling into wisdom, action, and connection. In personal relationships, this mastery allows love to flourish without being choked by insecurity, jealousy, or resentment. In professional contexts, it allows leaders to remain calm in crisis, to inspire confidence when others falter, and to mediate conflicts with clarity. In broader cultural and social interactions, emotional awareness and control prevent misunderstandings, diffuse tensions, and build bridges where walls might otherwise stand. To walk through life without awareness of emotions is to be carried by every wave, tossed from one reaction to another. To deny emotions altogether is to live disconnected from the very core of our humanity. But to cultivate awareness, to understand our triggers, to regulate with wisdom, and to use empathy as both shield and compass. This is the path of emotional mastery. It is here that social intelligence gains its depth and its power. For in the end, it is not the absence of emotion that makes us wise, but the ability to feel fully, to understand deeply, and to respond in ways that strengthen rather than weaken the bonds of human connection. Chapter 5. The Art of Effective Communication. Communication is the lifeblood of human connection. It is the bridge between minds, the means through which thoughts become shared realities and relationships are woven. Every word we speak and every silence we keep has the power to build or break, to inspire or to wound, to clarify or to confuse. Mastering the art of communication is therefore central to social intelligence. It is not simply about speaking well. It is about understanding how words, tone, and timing interact with the psychology of human behavior to create impact. Verbal mastery lies at the heart of this skill. Words are tools, and like any tool, their power depends on how they are used. Clarity is the first principle of effective speech. Too often, people speak without precision, leaving their audience to guess at meaning or intention. Clear communication requires stripping away unnecessary complexity, choosing words that resonate, and arranging them in ways that are both simple and memorable. A leader who can state a vision in a single sentence will inspire far more than one who hides meaning in layers of jargon. Clarity is not about speaking less intelligently. It is about making intelligence accessible. It is about ensuring that the message lands with the exact force intended, without distortion. Beyond clarity lies persuasion. Persuasion is not manipulation. It is the art of aligning your message with the values, needs, and emotions of the listener. Human beings rarely act on information alone. They are moved by stories, imagery, and emotional resonance. A lawyer does not win a jury with facts alone, but by weaving those facts into a narrative that appeals to both reason and empathy. A teacher does not inspire students with definitions, but with examples that make knowledge come alive. Persuasion respects the psychology of human behavior. It recognizes that people are more likely to be influenced when they feel understood, when they sense that the message speaks not only to their mind, but also to their heart. Impactful communication, therefore, combines clarity with persuasion, creating words that both inform and transform. Yet, effective communication is not a one-way act of speaking. It is equally, if not more, about listening. The psychology of listening reveals that most people do not truly listen. They hear the words but prepare their own responses, filtering the other's message through their own biases and assumptions. True listening demands presence. It requires suspending the internal chatter long enough to absorb the full meaning of what is being said. Not only the words, but the emotions beneath them. A friend who says, "I'm fine," in a tight voice may be communicating pain or exhaustion, and a perceptive listener hears the unspoken as clearly as the spoken. Listening at this level is transformative. It creates space for others to feel seen and valued. It diffuses defensiveness because people sense when they are genuinely heard. It strengthens bonds because listening communicates respect more powerfully than any declaration. This is why some of the most effective communicators are those who speak little but listen deeply, drawing others out with curiosity and patience. The socially intelligent listener becomes like a mirror, reflecting back not only words but feelings, helping the speaker to feel understood, sometimes even more deeply than they understood themselves. Conversation, however, is not simply about words and silence. It has its own rhythm, its own flow, much like music or dance. Timing often determines whether communication connects or falls flat. A joke told at the wrong moment can offend rather than amuse. An interruption, even well-intentioned, can shut down openness. A pause, on the other hand, can create space for reflection, allowing words to settle with more weight. Socially intelligent communicators are sensitive to this rhythm. They know when to speak and when to remain silent, when to press a point and when to let it rest, when to share their own story and when to invite another to share theirs. Flow in conversation is the art of balance. It is knowing how to move between speaking and listening in a way that feels natural and engaging. Too much dominance can make an interaction feel suffocating, while too much passivity can make it feel empty. The key lies in attunement, in sensing the energy of the exchange and adapting accordingly. A skilled communicator guides a conversation, much like a conductor guides an orchestra, ensuring that the voices rise and fall in harmony, that the tempo shifts with purpose, and that the overall effect leaves everyone enriched. Influence emerges from this mastery of dynamics. Influence does not come from volume or force. It comes from resonance. It is the quiet authority of someone who speaks with clarity, listens with empathy, and responds with timing. Influence is earned, not demanded, and it grows when people trust that their voice is respected and their perspective valued. When a leader listens before speaking, their words carry more weight. When a friend reflects understanding before offering advice, their counsel is more likely to be embraced. Influence is less about control and more about alignment, aligning your message with the flow of the conversation and the needs of those involved. The art of communication, then, is a living skill. It is practiced in every interaction, from the boardroom to the dinner table, from casual chats to life-changing conversations. It requires attentiveness to words and to silences, to tone and to timing, to reason and to emotion. To master it is to unlock one of the greatest powers available to any human being, the ability to shape connection, inspire change, and leave a lasting impact through the simple but profound act of exchanging words. Social intelligence is never complete without this art, for in the end, our thoughts, our emotions, and our insights reach others only through communication. And when that communication is clear, persuasive, empathetic, and attuned to the natural rhythm of human interaction, it becomes more than words. It becomes the thread that binds people together, the channel through which influence flows, and the foundation upon which trust and cooperation are built. Chapter 6. Building Trust and Authentic Connections. Every relationship we form, whether fleeting or lifelong, rests upon a single invisible foundation: trust. Without it, words lose their meaning, promises dissolve into suspicion, and connections collapse under the weight of doubt. With it, even imperfect people can build enduring bonds, forgive failings, and grow together through both harmony and conflict. Trust is not simply one aspect of relationships. It is their lifeblood. Trust is the silent agreement between individuals that what is given will not be betrayed, that what is shared will be honored, and that one's presence is not a threat but a source of safety. It is the certainty that someone will do what they say, or at least act with consistency that allows us to predict and rely upon them. In friendships, trust allows secrets to be shared without fear of exposure. In romantic relationships, it makes intimacy possible, transforming closeness into security rather than vulnerability to harm. In professional life, trust enables collaboration, making it possible for teams to work toward goals without suspicion sabotaging every step. Without trust, relationships become transactions, each person guarding themselves, measuring every word, and bracing for betrayal. With trust, relationships become sanctuaries, spaces where people can lay down their defenses and be fully themselves. One of the paradoxes of trust is that it cannot exist without vulnerability. People often imagine that showing weakness or revealing flaws will diminish respect, but in reality, it is through vulnerability that authenticity shines. To be vulnerable is to say, "Here is who I truly am," without masks, without pretenses. Here is what I fear, what I long for, what I struggle with. Such openness requires courage because it risks rejection. Yet it is precisely this risk that gives vulnerability its power. When someone shares their unpolished truth and it is received with acceptance, trust deepens beyond anything that surface-level perfection could achieve. Authenticity emerges when vulnerability meets acceptance. Pretending to be perfect may gain admiration, but it rarely creates intimacy. People bond not over polished facades, but over shared humanity. The friend who admits their insecurities, the leader who acknowledges their mistakes, the partner who confesses their fears, all invite others into a space of truth. In that space, relationships move beyond performance into genuine connection. Vulnerability is the soil in which trust grows, and authenticity is the fruit it bears. The psychology of bonding and attachment sheds light on why these dynamics hold such power. From birth, human beings are wired to seek connection. Infants form attachments to caregivers not simply for survival, but for the security of knowing that they are seen and valued. Psychologists describe attachment as the blueprint for how we connect throughout life. Secure attachments, where needs are consistently met, foster confidence and resilience. Insecure attachments, where care is inconsistent or absent, can create patterns of anxiety, avoidance, or dependence in later relationships. Yet, regardless of our early experiences, the need for bonding remains universal. It is etched into the human psyche, shaping how we approach friendships, love, and community. Trust, vulnerability, and attachment converge in ways that determine the depth of our connections. When we encounter someone who listens without judgment, responds with consistency, and respects our truths, our nervous system relaxes. Stress diminishes, and a sense of belonging takes root. This biological response is not an accident, but a reflection of our evolutionary wiring. Human beings survived not by isolation, but by cooperation. Those who formed strong bonds were more likely to thrive, and so our brains reward trust with feelings of safety and well-being. Oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, is released in moments of connection, strengthening the sense of closeness and loyalty. Yet trust is fragile. It takes time to build, but only moments to break. A single act of betrayal can unravel years of faith. This is why consistency and integrity are so vital. People watch not only what we say, but whether our actions align with our words. Promises kept reinforce trust, while promises broken erode it. Transparency also matters. Even when the truth is difficult, honesty sustains trust more than pleasant lies. Authentic connections are not about perfection, but about reliability. The knowledge that while mistakes may happen, deceit and abandonment will not define the relationship. To cultivate authentic connections, one must approach others with both openness and responsibility. Openness invites closeness by revealing who we are. Responsibility protects that closeness by honoring what others entrust to us. This balance creates relationships that are both deep and resilient. Bonds forged in trust are not easily shaken by conflict, because both parties know that beneath the disagreement lies a foundation that will not crumble. In the modern world, where digital interactions often replace face-to-face encounters, building trust can feel more challenging. Social media encourages performance, curating images of success and happiness that may mask reality. Yet even in these spaces, authenticity stands out. People resonate with honesty, with stories that reveal the struggle behind the smile, with expressions of truth that cut through the noise of performance. The hunger for authenticity remains because the human need for trust is timeless. Trust and authentic connection transform life. They turn relationships from obligations into joys, workplaces from battlegrounds into collaborations, and communities from collections of strangers into families of belonging. They give people the courage to grow, the strength to endure hardship, and the joy of being fully known and fully accepted. Without them, life becomes a performance. With them, life becomes a shared journey. The mastery of social intelligence is incomplete without this chapter of the story. For all observation, communication, and empathy mean little if they do not lead to the deeper reality of trust. And trust, when nurtured through vulnerability and guided by the psychology of bonding, becomes the foundation not only of relationships, but of the human experience itself. Chapter 7. Navigating Power Dynamics and Influence. Human interaction is never neutral. Whether in families, friendships, workplaces, or societies, there are always invisible currents of power shaping how people relate to one another. Some hold authority, while others defer. Some influence through charisma, while others exert control through rules or resources. These dynamics are not inherently good or bad. They are simply a fact of human social life. To master social intelligence requires an understanding of these power structures and, more importantly, the ability to move within them with wisdom, integrity, and skill. Social hierarchies emerge naturally whenever people gather. In small groups, someone will often rise to a position of leadership, whether through confidence, knowledge, or initiative. In organizations, hierarchies are formalized through titles and structures. Even among friends, subtle hierarchies can be observed. Who is the decision maker when plans are made? Whose opinion carries the most weight? Whose humor sets the tone of the group? These hierarchies serve a purpose. They provide order, reduce conflict by clarifying roles, and ensure that collective goals can be achieved. Yet, they also come with risks. Power can be abused, voices can be silenced, and creativity can be stifled when hierarchies become rigid or oppressive. Authority itself is multifaceted. There is positional authority, the power given by titles or roles, a manager, a teacher, a parent. There is expertise authority, earned through skill, knowledge, or experience. A doctor whose opinion carries weight because of training, an elder respected for wisdom. And then there is relational authority, which emerges not from position or knowledge, but from trust and respect. A friend who is consistently reliable may hold great influence even without formal power. Social intelligence recognizes these different forms of authority and responds accordingly, respecting positional power when necessary, valuing expertise where it matters, and cultivating trust as the deepest and most enduring source of influence. The psychology of persuasion and compliance reveals much about how people respond to authority and influence. Psychologists such as Robert Cialdini have shown that human beings are guided by certain universal principles when deciding whether to comply with requests or be persuaded by others. Reciprocity, for instance, makes people more likely to say yes when they feel they have received something first. Commitment and consistency lead people to act in ways that align with their prior choices. Social proof makes us more likely to follow when we see others doing the same. Authority, whether real or perceived, carries immense persuasive weight, as demonstrated in the famous Milgram experiments where participants obeyed instructions to shocking levels simply because they came from an authoritative figure. Understanding these principles does not mean using them to manipulate others. It means recognizing the forces at play in everyday interactions. A salesperson may attempt to pressure compliance by showing how many others have already bought the product, while a leader may strengthen persuasion by appealing to shared commitments. Social intelligence requires the discernment to see when persuasion is being used ethically and when it is exploitative. More importantly, it provides the skills to wield influence responsibly. True influence is not about control, but about alignment. It does not coerce people into compliance, but inspires them to move willingly in a shared direction. This is influence without manipulation, the kind that uplifts rather than exploits. It begins with empathy, understanding what people value, what fears they carry, and what aspirations drive them. When influence speaks to these truths sincerely, it resonates at a deeper level. A teacher influences students not by demanding obedience, but by awakening curiosity and showing belief in their potential. A leader inspires a team not by threats, but by painting a vision that connects their individual efforts to a meaningful collective goal. A parent shapes a child not by forcing behavior, but by modeling integrity, love, and consistency that the child naturally emulates. Influence without manipulation is grounded in authenticity. People sense when they're being used, and trust quickly erodes when they feel controlled. But when influence is rooted in transparency, when motives are clear and values consistent, people lean into it willingly. This is the difference between power over and power with. Power over seeks to dominate and extract. Power with seeks to cooperate and elevate. Socially intelligent individuals choose the latter, knowing that influence sustained by trust lasts far longer than control maintained by fear. Navigating power dynamics also means knowing when to step forward and when to step back. There are moments when asserting influence is necessary, speaking up against injustice, guiding a group in times of uncertainty, standing firm when values are threatened. There are also moments when yielding influence allows others to grow, when stepping back empowers others to find their voice, and when humility strengthens trust more than dominance ever could. Mastery of influence lies not in always leading, but in knowing how to serve the needs of the moment. Culturally, power dynamics take on even more complexity. In some societies, hierarchy is deeply ingrained, and authority is rarely questioned. In others, egalitarian values challenge traditional structures, favoring open dialogue over obedience. Social intelligence requires sensitivity to these differences, adapting influence strategies to honor cultural expectations without losing authenticity. What is persuasive in one culture may fall flat in another, and what is seen as respectful in one setting may appear weak in another. Navigating these dynamics skillfully allows influence to transcend boundaries and build bridges across diverse worlds. Influence is not measured by how many people comply in a moment, but by the legacy left in their lives. Manipulation may achieve short-term wins, but it breeds resentment and distrust. Genuine influence, grounded in respect and authenticity, creates loyalty, growth, and transformation. It leaves people stronger, not weaker, freer, not bound, inspired, not diminished. Power dynamics will always exist, but how we navigate them determines whether they become tools of oppression or pathways to growth. Social intelligence transforms power into partnership and influence into inspiration. By understanding hierarchies without being enslaved by them, by practicing persuasion without exploitation, and by seeking influence that uplifts rather than manipulates, we step into the highest form of social mastery, the ability to shape the world around us while honoring the dignity of those within it. Chapter 8. Conflict, Cooperation, and Resolution. Conflict is as old as humanity itself. Wherever two or more people exist together, there will inevitably be moments of tension, disagreement, or opposition. At its root, conflict is not simply a failure of harmony, but a natural result of human diversity. Different perspectives, desires, values, and needs will sometimes collide, and when they do, sparks of friction arise. These sparks, however, do not have to destroy. Conflict, if understood and transformed, can become a catalyst for growth, innovation, and deeper connection. But when left unmanaged, it breeds resentment, aggression, and division that can fracture relationships and communities. Conflicts arise for many reasons, but at their heart lies the gap between perception and expectation. People enter interactions with assumptions about how things should unfold, assumptions shaped by personality, culture, upbringing, and prior experience. When reality deviates from those expectations, tension surfaces. A colleague who fails to meet a deadline may frustrate another who values punctuality above all. A friend who forgets a birthday may wound someone whose love language is recognition. A spouse who withdraws in silence may trigger insecurity in a partner who equates silence with rejection. None of these conflicts are merely about the event itself. They are about the deeper meanings people attach to actions and the way unmet expectations stir emotions. The psychology of aggression and defensiveness illuminates how conflicts often escalate. Aggression is rarely the first impulse. It is typically the expression of a deeper emotion such as fear, frustration, or shame. When someone feels threatened, whether their authority, dignity, or belonging is questioned, the brain shifts into a protective mode. This survival instinct may express itself as anger, lashing out in an attempt to regain control. Defensiveness, on the other hand, emerges when individuals feel cornered or blamed. Instead of addressing the issue, they shield themselves with excuses, counterattacks, or silence. The tragedy is that defensiveness blocks understanding, creating a cycle where each side protects rather than connects, listens less, and speaks more, fueling further misunderstanding. Misunderstanding itself plays a critical role in conflict. Human communication is imperfect. Words are filtered through biases, tones are misinterpreted, and nonverbal cues are easily misread. What one person intends as humor may be taken as insult. What is meant as constructive feedback may be received as personal attack. The result is that conflicts often grow not from malice, but from miscommunication. Without clarity and patience, the gap between intention and interpretation becomes a breeding ground for suspicion, and suspicion, once planted, is difficult to uproot. Yet conflict is not the enemy of connection. It can be a forge in which stronger bonds are shaped. The transformation of conflict into cooperation begins with a shift in perspective. Instead of seeing conflict as a battle to be won, it can be reframed as a problem to be solved together. This requires stepping out of adversarial postures and into a mindset of curiosity. Asking, why does this matter so much to them, opens the door to empathy. Instead of fixating on positions, the surface-level demands, attention must turn to underlying interests, the deeper needs or values at stake. Two siblings may argue over who gets to use the family car, but beneath the argument, one may be seeking independence while the other seeks fairness. Addressing the deeper needs often reveals solutions that simple compromise never could. Emotional regulation is crucial in conflict transformation. Anger narrows vision, convincing us that only one side can prevail. By pausing, breathing, and grounding ourselves, we create space for reason to return. This pause allows us to respond rather than react, to listen rather than attack. Active listening becomes a powerful tool here, not only hearing the words but acknowledging the emotions behind them. When someone feels heard, their defensiveness softens. Validation, even without agreement, has the power to disarm hostility. Saying, "I can see this is important to you," or "I understand you feel frustrated," communicates respect, creating space for dialogue rather than escalation. Cooperation emerges when the focus shifts from blame to solution. Instead of assigning fault, the conversation turns toward shared goals. In workplaces, this might mean focusing not on who caused the mistake, but on how to prevent it in the future. In families, it might mean recognizing that both parties ultimately desire peace and closeness, even if they differ on how to achieve it. The language of cooperation replaces accusations with collaboration. Phrases like, "How can we fix this together?" carry far more power than "you always" or "you never." Forgiveness also plays a role in resolution. Conflict leaves scars, and without forgiveness, those scars harden into barriers. Forgiveness does not mean excusing harm or denying pain. It means choosing not to let the past hold the present hostage. It clears the ground for rebuilding trust, allowing relationships to move forward instead of remaining trapped in cycles of resentment. Culturally, the ways conflicts are approached vary greatly. Some societies value direct confrontation, seeing it as honest and efficient, while others prefer indirect approaches, preserving harmony through subtle negotiation. Social intelligence requires sensitivity to these cultural norms, adapting strategies to fit the context while maintaining authenticity. Recognizing when silence signifies respect rather than avoidance, or when directness is appreciated rather than offensive, can mean the difference between escalating conflict and fostering cooperation. The measure of social intelligence in conflict is not the absence of disagreement, but the presence of growth. Conflict reveals what truly matters to people. It shines light on hidden fears, unmet needs, and unspoken values. By approaching it with empathy, patience, and skill, conflict becomes a teacher rather than a destroyer. Cooperation born from conflict is often stronger than harmony that was never tested, for it carries with it the resilience of two sides that have chosen understanding over division. Resolution does not always mean agreement. Sometimes it means agreeing to differ with respect. Sometimes it means setting boundaries that preserve peace while acknowledging difference. What matters is not uniformity, but the restoration of dignity and the commitment to move forward without hostility. Conflict, cooperation, and resolution are not separate stages, but parts of cycle. Conflict will always arise. Cooperation can always be chosen. Resolution can always be pursued. To navigate this cycle with wisdom is to embody the highest forms of social intelligence, turning friction into fuel for deeper connection and transforming division into opportunities for unity. Chapter 9. Social Intelligence in Modern Society. To understand social intelligence in the present age, one must first acknowledge that the arena of human interaction has expanded beyond the physical into the digital. Once, relationships were cultivated face-to-face, with cues of body language and tone guiding the flow of connection. Today, much of human communication takes place through screens, in spaces where words travel without expressions, where identities can be curated, and where communities are formed not through proximity, but through shared interests and algorithms. Social intelligence has not become less important in this environment. It has become more essential, for the complexity of navigating modern social life has multiplied. Social media stands at the center of this transformation. Platforms that promise connection have indeed linked people across continents, creating opportunities to share ideas, stories, and lives in ways once unimaginable. Yet, with this connectivity comes a reshaping of human behavior. Online, people are more conscious of their image, curating carefully crafted versions of themselves to be consumed by others. Likes, shares, and comments act as a new form of social currency, subtly influencing how people express themselves. What might once have been private reflection becomes public performance. A photo of a meal, a statement of belief, or a glimpse of daily life is not shared for its own sake, but often for the validation it may bring. This shift alters the psychology of interaction. The pursuit of online approval can drive comparison, leading to feelings of inadequacy when one's life does not measure up to the highlight reels of others. It can foster impulsivity, as individuals post quickly for attention without considering long-term consequences. It can also amplify extremes, rewarding outrage or sensationalism with visibility, while nuance and restraint are drowned out in the noise. For the socially intelligent, this environment demands discernment, the ability to engage meaningfully without becoming enslaved to the dynamics of performance and approval. Beyond individuals, social media has given rise to collective behaviors that reflect the deeper psychology of groups. Groupthink, the phenomenon where the desire for harmony or conformity within a group suppresses critical thinking, thrives in digital spaces. Online communities often rally around shared beliefs, and while this can create belonging, it can also stifle dissent. When everyone within a digital tribe agrees, those who raise questions are quickly silenced or cast out. The pressure to conform intensifies because online disapproval is not private, it is public, magnified by the visibility of likes and comments. As a result, people may abandon their own judgment to preserve their place within the group, sacrificing individuality for acceptance. Mob psychology, long studied in the context of crowds, finds new expression in the digital age. Outrage spreads quickly across platforms, often fueled by algorithms that prioritize emotionally charged content. A single post can ignite waves of condemnation or support, and individuals who might act with restraint in person feel emboldened by the anonymity or distance of the screen. The digital mob acts with intensity, often disregarding nuance, leaving lasting impact on those targeted. While collective action can be a force for justice, it can also become a vehicle for cruelty when driven by unexamined emotion rather than reasoned understanding. Digital tribes further illustrate the transformation of social life. Communities are no longer limited to geography. They are formed around shared passions, identities, or ideologies. For many, these tribes provide belonging that may be lacking in physical communities, offering affirmation and identity. Yet, tribalism has a shadow side. The stronger the sense of belonging to one group, the easier it becomes to see outsiders as adversaries. Polarization deepens, not because people are inherently hostile, but because digital tribes reinforce us versus them mentalities. This dynamic makes dialogue difficult and cooperation rare, as algorithms create echo chambers that shield people from perspectives outside their own. In such a world, developing resilience becomes not optional but vital. The modern individual is constantly overstimulated, bombarded by information, images, and opinions at every turn. The human brain, evolved for smaller, slower interactions, now struggles under the weight of endless feeds and constant notifications. This overstimulation breeds anxiety, restlessness, and the inability to focus deeply. Social intelligence in this environment is as much about protecting the self as it is about connecting with others. Resilience begins with boundaries, knowing when to step away from screens, when to limit exposure noise, and when to choose depth over breadth and engagement. Resilience also requires cultivating a sense of self that is not dependent on digital validation. When worth is measured in likes or followers, identity becomes fragile, swayed by the fickle approval of strangers. By rooting self-worth in values, character, and real-life connections, individuals strengthen themselves against the volatility of online perception. This does not mean rejecting digital life altogether, but entering it with groundedness, using it as a tool rather than becoming its captive. Another aspect of resilience lies in learning to engage critically with information. In an overstimulated world, not all voices are equal. Social intelligence today requires the ability to discern truth from distortion, sincerity from performance, and intention from manipulation. It means resisting the pull of sensationalism and pausing to reflect before reacting. It means refusing to join the mob without understanding, and instead choosing responses that honor both integrity and empathy. Social intelligence in modern society is about balance. It is about embracing the opportunities of global connection while resisting the pitfalls of performance and polarization. It is about participating in digital tribes without losing individuality, and about engaging with difference without descending into hostility. It is about cultivating resilience in the face of noise so that one can listen more deeply, connect more authentically, and live more intentionally. The digital age has not diminished the importance of social intelligence. It has magnified it. The challenges are greater, but so too are the possibilities. Those who master the skills of awareness, empathy, and discernment in this age will not only thrive themselves, but will help others navigate a world that often feels overwhelming. They will be the voices of reason amid outrage, the creators of authentic connection amid performance, and the builders of bridges across the divides of modern society. Chapter 10. Mastering Social Intelligence for Success. Mastery of social intelligence is not achieved in a single moment of revelation. It is cultivated day by day, through conscious choices, habits, and reflections. Just as physical strength is built through consistent exercise, social intelligence grows through intentional practice in the small interactions of daily life. Every conversation becomes a classroom, every relationship an opportunity, and every challenge a chance to refine the way we engage with others. To master social intelligence is to weave its principles into the fabric of life until they become second nature. Practical habits form the foundation of this mastery. One of the most powerful is the practice of presence. In a world where distractions constantly pull at attention, the ability to give someone undivided focus is both rare and transformative. Presence means listening without glancing at a screen, engaging without rehearsing a response in one's head, and noticing not only words but tone, posture, and emotion. Presence communicates respect, and respect opens doors to trust. Another habit is reflection, taking time at the end of the day to ask, how did I interact with others? Did I listen deeply? Did I respond with empathy or with defensiveness? Reflection turns experience into wisdom, ensuring that mistakes become teachers rather than repeated patterns. Equally important is the cultivation of empathy as a daily discipline. Empathy does not require agreement with everyone, but it does demand the effort to step into their perspective. It means pausing to consider why someone may be upset, what fears drive their actions, or what hopes underlie their words. Even when disagreements remain, empathy softens the ground, allowing cooperation and respect to flourish. Another habit is intentional communication, choosing words that clarify rather than confuse, that uplift rather than diminish. Over time, these small habits accumulate, transforming the way a person moves through the social world and making them a source of connection wherever they go. The application of social intelligence extends into every sphere of life, none more so than leadership. A leader who commands through fear or authority alone may achieve compliance, but will rarely inspire loyalty. The socially intelligent leader listens to their team, values diverse perspectives, and understands that authority is not weakened by empathy, but strengthened by it. They create environments where people feel safe to contribute, where mistakes become opportunities for growth rather than grounds for punishment. Such leaders inspire not because they demand, but because they embody integrity, consistency, and vision. History shows that the most enduring leaders, whether in politics, business, or communities, are those who combine strength with humanity, clarity with compassion, authority with trust. In love and personal relationships, social intelligence is equally vital. Affection alone cannot sustain intimacy if one partner cannot understand or respond to the emotional world of the other. Love deepens when partners are attuned to each other's needs, when vulnerability is met with empathy, and when conflict is navigated with patience rather than hostility. Social intelligence transforms relationships by making each partner feel seen, valued, and understood. It turns love from a fleeting passion into a resilient bond. Friendships, too, are enriched by this intelligence, as trust grows when people show consistency, when secrets are kept safe, and when loyalty is proven not only in joy but in difficulty. In family life, parents who cultivate social intelligence teach not only with words but with presence and example, raising children who learn empathy, communication, and resilience by watching it lived out daily. Business is perhaps the clearest arena where the fruits of social intelligence are visible. In negotiations, those who understand not just numbers, but human motivations often prevail. In customer relations, empathy transforms transactions into loyalty, making people return not simply for a product, but for the experience of being valued. In innovation, teams thrive not by eliminating disagreement, but by harnessing it, using conflict as a spark for creativity rather than a cause for division. Socially intelligent businesses do not merely compete. They build ecosystems of trust among employees, clients, and communities, becoming not only successful, but also respected. The highest form of mastery, however, is not only personal, but transformational. To become a socially intelligent influencer of change is to extend this mastery beyond the self and into the wider world. Social intelligence at this level is not about personal advantage, but about collective progress. It is the teacher who reshapes classrooms into places of safety and growth. It is the activist who builds bridges across divisions, uniting people under shared values rather than deepening divides. It is the entrepreneur who creates not only profit, but also dignity and opportunity for others. It is the community leader who resolves disputes with fairness, ensuring that justice strengthens unity rather than tearing it apart. Influencers of change understand that every action ripples outward. A word of encouragement may inspire someone to pursue their dreams. A moment of empathy may prevent despair in someone who feels unseen. A model of integrity may inspire others to hold themselves to higher standards. Influence is not always about grand gestures. It is often about the consistent, small ways that social intelligence shapes the lives of those around us. Yet becoming such an influencer requires courage. It means choosing integrity over convenience, empathy over indifference, and vision over fear. It means resisting the temptation to manipulate, even when manipulation seems easier, and instead trusting that authentic influence, though slower, is more enduring. It requires resilience in the face of misunderstanding, patience when progress is slow, and hope when change seems far away. The mastery of social intelligence is not a destination, but a journey, a lifelong practice of becoming more aware, more empathetic, more skillful in navigating the complexities of human interaction. It enriches every relationship, strengthens every endeavor, and shapes every legacy. Those who walk this path become more than successful individuals. They become catalysts of connection, creators of trust, and builders of communities where people thrive. In a world where technology advances faster than wisdom, where divisions run deep, and where loneliness persists even amid constant connection, the need for social intelligence has never been greater. To master it is to step into a life of deeper meaning, broader influence, and lasting impact. Success is no longer defined only by what one achieves, but by how one uplifts, connects, and transforms others along the way. The final invitation is this: let social intelligence be more than knowledge. Let it be practice. Let it be woven into your words, your habits, your relationships, and your leadership. For in mastering the art of human connection, you master not only success, but also the essence of what it means to live fully, wisely, and well.